Hi folks, I hope you're well and happy and having a good week. Anyway, so, right, I've done a lot of videos recently talking about going from faith to knowledge to understanding. Well, put it this way, understanding is incredibly important, and that's why I've been talking about the fact of asking questions and not being afraid about the answers. It's remarkable what you can come across. But certainly, I watched some videos on YouTube, and football related, normally about Manchester United, and they had one Gary Neville talking about Man United. And again, he spoke with a complete lack of understanding. You can certainly see why he was never successful as a manager. Because, his understanding is poor. Because when he's talking about Ten Hag and how Ten Hag has done fantastically well, and even how he's, the players brought in and who have been the most important players, he missed out Martinez in his top 3 most important players. He included Daigle and Rashford. Missing out the fact that, United's biggest problem was defence. And it was meaning that Daigle had to be worked so much harder. He didn't have defenders who could actually play with the ball, who were comfortable with the ball at the feet, but Martinez is brilliant with that, so therefore it's helped Daigle immensely in playing a different type of football himself. And also, he's not worked so hard, Daigle. He might have to make 2 or 3 saves in a match now compared to, 8 or 9 before, because he had Maguire and Lindelof. All makes a difference. But it's defence, because with a strong defence, it means that the midfield can attack. It means that the forwards now get support from the midfield, which they weren't getting before. So it means that Rashford is now getting the space and support so that he can play the way he wants to play, and he can play better because the whole team is playing better because we've got a stronger defence. Because when you go back to Louis van Gaal wanted to play a diamond type of football. A lovely possession playing football. But then that game against Leicester, where we lost him, it was either 4-3 or 5-3, where we were winning the game and then suddenly our defence was absolute crap. And Louis van Gaal knew he couldn't play the way he wanted because our defence was awful. And it wasn't sorted out until last summer. Bringing in Martinez. We already had Varane, but Varane was really a pitiful example of himself. Until he had Martinez playing next to him. Then suddenly Varane could play the way that he normally plays because he wasn't able to cover for Maguire or play a different way of playing because of the weaknesses of Maguire or Lindelof. That made a difference. And of course, bringing Casemiro in means we've got that cover in midfield as well. So really, looking at the most important players brought in, you've got to say it has to be Casemiro and Martinez. Forget who's the third. There isn't a third. Just those two. But also, when people in football talk about what good a job Erik Ten Hag has done, they forget the fact that Erik Ten Hag took over from Rangnick. Now, Rangnick, I felt really sorry for Rangnick because Rangnick basically was identical in his way of doing things as Ten Hag. But as Rangnick was only a temporary manager, and it was known that he was a temporary manager, players just weren't interested in taking any notice of what he was doing. Changing their whole way of playing for a temporary manager, they didn't want to do that. And so they didn't. And when he said he needed players to come in that January window, and the board said no, they completely undermined him as well as manager. So we had a manager who was trying to do what Ten Hag has done, And that's the point. Ten Hag now has Casemiro and Martinez, which Rangnick didn't. Had Rangnick been a full-time manager, had they brought in Martinez and Casemiro for Rangnick, would he have had a far, far better season? Yeah. Yeah, you can bet your bottom dollar he would have had a far, far better season, yeah. Well, we saw it in that FA Cup game against West Ham. First half, you had Maguire, Lindelof playing centre-back. You had McTominay in midfield, and they slowed the game down so much it was ridiculous. It was back to the way they were playing under Rangnick. Why? Because you had Maguire, Lindelof and McTominay. The same defensive triangle that Rangnick had. That basically caused him a lot of problems. And in that first half, yeah, West Ham were by far the better team. Looked the most dangerous. Looked far more like scoring than United did. And if you look at how Maguire got carded, my God, what was he doing? Going into a tackle on his knees. What on earth was he trying to do there? It annoys me, like when Ten Hag come out and said Maguire had a good game. But he's having to, as in the manager's having to try and teach Maguire how to play. He was the captain! And he can't play. Ten Hag just said he can't play. He's having to teach him the basics of how to play. Jesus. That's why Ten Hag is doing better than Rangnick. Because Ten Hag has better players available. But as I say, you have to ask the questions. When you hear people speak, you've got to question it. You can't just accept that. Whether it's from politicians, people in church, or pundits in sport. You've got to challenge that stuff because, yeah, in your own mind at least. Because you want to have a conversation with friends about stuff, then have an understanding. If your understanding is based on someone else's understanding when they didn't really even ask questions, yeah, you're not going to have a great conversation with your friends, are you? So ask questions. Always ask questions. Certainly for your own life, for your own walk. Ask questions. Yeah. Took Bambini out for a walk earlier and come across a person with a dog. So, yeah, Bambini started playing with a dog. So I went over and spoke to the person and we walked around. And young lady who said that it's not her dog, it's her ex's dog. And, well, it used to be her dog because she then said later that she'd been married, they'd been divorced for a year. But they got the dog when they were together, but it's more his dog than hers, so he took the dog. But because he's gone on holiday, she's now got the dog for a week. And so I was talking to her about relationships and stuff like that, and she basically said she'd been with this man for a year before they got married. It's like, yeah, that wasn't long enough, was it? She said, she was married before for 8 years, and she got married when she was 17. Jesus! You made some bad decisions, girl. You really have. Yeah, you didn't ask a lot of questions. In either of those situations, you got married to someone way too soon. There wasn't a lot of wisdom involved in your decision making. But in life, ask questions. If you're going to move from one job to another, yeah, look at the company you're working for. Speak to some of the staff. Yeah, so try and have an interview time either around about the time they go for lunch or around about the time, just before. So when you come out your interview or just before you go in, there'll be people coming out for lunch. You can have a chat with them about the company. Get the real download on the company. Yeah? Look it up on the internet. See what complaints have been made about the company. See if there's been any actions taken against it by former employees. Ask questions. If you're going to make a big life decision, ask questions. So even something as stupid as football, as to whether the manager is doing such a good job or not. Yeah. Also, okay, we're talking about whether Man United are doing a good job. You've got to look at the fact that Chelsea have been poor, Liverpool have been poor, Tottenham have been poor. So that's 3 teams that should be challenging for top 4 that aren't this season. For some reason, Liverpool have fallen off. Don't know why, they just have. And so you've got that as well to put into the equation when asking questions. Thinking, what, hold it, if Liverpool were playing the way they have been over the last few seasons, would United be in top 4? Or would they be looking as good? Probably not. Because, of course, United's next game is against Liverpool. And at the moment, people think United should win that, actually, even though it's at Anfield. They still think United should win that. The way Liverpool are playing, the way United are playing, you will probably fancy United to win that. So you've got to look at how Liverpool are playing, how Chelsea are playing, how other teams are playing, in you're weighing up. Problem is, as I say, people generally speaking don't weigh up. You've got to weigh up. You've got to weigh up. I said to the lady as we were walking around, I said, well, if you ever get married again, I said, pick someone who, yeah, the way I understand it now is you're going to go on a journey. Your life is a journey. Now, who are you going to want next to you? So if you've got a best friend, and this is what I've always said about best friends, you know, there are people who have had best friends of the opposite sex. They've got their ideal partner right there. And they can't see it. That's insane. So, yeah. Anyway, there you go. You take care. God bless. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.